closeness to holiness. When he feels joy at having been favored by the Creator, then too he must say that his joy is primarily because now there is joy above in the at being able to bring her private organ near her, and that she did not have to send her private organ out. His joy is primarily one besides him. When one feels some closeness to holiness, when he feels joy at having been favored by the Creator, then too he must say, but his joy is primarily because now there is joy above in the being able to bring her private organ near her, and that she did not have to send a private organ out. Question for an active workshop. How can we enter the lesson with gladness and intention to bring contentment to the Creator? Again, how can we enter the lesson with gladness and intention to bring contentment to the Creator? To give contentment to the Creator, you have to start with gratitude. The main thing is to start with great joy. It will be grateful for the privilege we got to be together in the lesson, to draw the reforming line together with all the friends in the world. Lie dozens, hundreds, thousands of friends connected, and all of us together are on the same path. We all got the opportunity to reach a prayer, to think of one another, to come out of ourselves. That's the most joyful thing that can be. What gives true joy is the light that reforms, as said, when a person understands that he has a chance to do something in this life, to adhere to the friends, to open a window and go deep into the purpose of creation, and get closer and closer to the friends. So as we decide to draw the light now together, person gets joy in the heart from the greatness of the goal. He receives strength and confidence, whatever he needs in life. So let's attract the light together. It's very important. Joy is very important. It's right to us that blessed is adhered to the blessed. That's why we have matter of joy. It's as if we are commanded to be happy, to help one another the righteousness of their path, to perceive, to acquire the strength to be in joy as much as possible. Just to add in mutual prayer that the Creator will help us. Goes one man in one heart into the lesson, and add labour and ask for the light to rearrange our hearts and go into a kind of an attack into the lesson. Hard not to be happy with the Latinos. They put together such a happy preparation with great determination and with efforts for connection. I said that we sat within the afternoon. The Latinos have 2 near congresses, and we talked about the opportunity we have now to prepare for such a great congress. It's going to reinforce the local groups going to be in Chile and in Mexico City, and it's truly exciting, the opportunity we get now to give strength to the friends, and now besides him, besides them, through the friends, I'm happy from the daily things that instead of becoming routine, they become important, that we get up on time in the morning, and when we get up we know where we're going and who we're with. And even if there's disturbances, we also learned this week that it's places where the Creator wants us to advance this personal treatment, that the Creator gives us the development of the 10 and the society. Each such thing awakens joy in me. Joy from the fact that Creator awakened in us the point, awakened in us the highest, most special desire there is, and even if it's small among big scary desires, seemingly we're sitting here together in the morning year to grow this thing called contentment. I also heard once that you have to be in fear, this desire will disappear, that we will be left with a beastly desire alone. So you can awaken the hour and not take it as for granted, and be happy that we're here awake, ready, and go toward the goal. Giant friends, we've gathered here to thank the Creator, and with all our joy, we take the opportunity He gives us today to strengthen our bonds of love and faith even more, from being led by our beloved Rav to the most exalted goal. We have to prepare all the good in our heart, our urgency, our yearning, our love, joy, unity, devotion to get close to the godly will and realize it. I invite all the friends to take advantage of this lesson in full, with a clean, open heart filled with love to the friends. That this lesson will be the transition to bestowing friends together. Except number 2. 1. One must seek advice how he can bring contentment above. Clearly, if he receives pleasure, and there will be contentment above. Therefore he yearns to always be in the king's palace and have the ability to play with the king's treasures, and this will certainly bring contentment above. It follows that all his longing should be only for the sake of the Creator. Again, one must seek advice how he can bring contentment above. Clearly, if he receives pleasure, there will be contentment above. Therefore, he yearns to always be in the king's palace and to have the ability to play with the king's treasures, and this will certainly bring contentment above. Follows that all his longing should be only for the sake of the Creator. We enter the lesson with an intention to bring contentment to the Creator. Silent workshop. We enter the lesson with the intention to bring contentment to the Creator. Hello friends, we're continuing studying the article 2. We will begin our lesson with watching a recorded lesson together from December 2nd, 2003. Please. And after he corrects his part, he must correct. And he begins the correction of a begins to raise money and provides him accordingly. That's the normal order of the birth of the pot scrutinies and corrections of the Rasham, the records. After the shattering, there's nothing special about this. That's what we learn from the wisdom of Kabbalah. We learn out of the total broken records. There isn't a single part of the broken vessels that's not included in before the scrutiny. We cannot discern that there are 4 different parts there. We have to draw the light to the entire world, the entire man, and then finer, pure parts of wicked that go through the correction first. They pass the correction to the coarser parts, and in order to correct the coarse parts, they enter additional work, and so on so forth. Just as we learn meaning, we shouldn't separate here or look for some sense of nationalism or the blessing of the chosen people, or see this somehow as an isolated method, a specialized method. It is a special method, but for this group of people to correct the world, we say that the collective and the particular are equal. Should we also pray for the two to the part of? Yes. So our group also needs to be divided to and work according to that also with us. When we go through the corrections, we scrutinize first. Then because there are parts in us that yearn for adhesion with the Creator, and there are parts that completely are unable to be in any form of contact with Him. Keep going. We are in order item 6 in the article. But when we fully understand the essence of the Torah and mitzvot that were given to us and their desired purpose to the extent our sages instructed us, which is the purpose of the great creation that is set before our eyes, we will understand everything. The first concept is that there is no act without a purpose. There is no exception from this rule except for the lowest of the human species or infants. Therefore, it is certain that the Creator, whose exaltedness is inconceivable, would not act, be it great, a great or a small, act without some purpose. Our sages tell us about that the world was created only for the purpose of observing Torah and mitzvot, meaning, as our sages explained, that the aim of the Creator from the time He created His creation is to reveal His godliness to others. Since the revelation of His godliness reaches a creature as pleasant bounty that is ever growing until it reaches the desired measure. By this the lowly rise with true recognition and become a to Him and to cling unto Him until they reach their final completion. The eye has not seen a God besides you, and because of the greatness and glory of that perfection, the Torah and the prophecy too refrain from uttering even a single word of exaggeration here, as our sages implied about this. All the prophets made their prophecies only for the days of the Messiah, but for the next world, the eye has not seen a God besides you, as is known to the knowledgeable ones. This perfection is expressed in the words of the Torah and the prophecy, and in the words of our sages in the simple word. Because of the widespread use of this word by the masses, it has lost almost all its content. But if you reflect on that word for even an instant, you will be overwhelmed by its wondrous stature. For if you picture the exaltedness of the Creator and the lowliness of the creature, you will be able to perceive the value from one with the other. Then you will understand why we ascribe that word the purpose of the whole creation. It turns out that the purpose of the whole creation is for the lowly creatures to be able by observing to rise ever upward, ever developing until they are rewarded with their Creator. What is he telling us in item 6? He says, as is written in many verses, I created the inclination, I've created the Torah as a spice. There's a creature that is the will to receive a created being, and in order to reach the purpose, so that the Creator related to creation from within the purpose. The end of the action is in the initial thought, the way he wanted to create the creature. So he will reach the level of the Creator as in the degree of wholeness, eternity, eternal. That's why he created the created being with all those forces, all those conditions that allow the creature to reach this purpose, and the end of the action is in the initial thought. And in order to allow this created being to go through this entire process, because without going through the process, the creating cannot feel, cannot acquire, cannot attain the purpose. Fully to feel he won't feel, unpleasantness to feel it in whole. He has to perform actions and attain the vessels, that which are vessels of feeling of the purpose. So all those forces the created being needs in order to reach, in order to work on his nature, in order to reach fulfillment, the realization of the purpose of creation. All those forces are called Torah and commandments. These actions pass over the created being. They change his heart and his mind. They correct him according to the Creator. And then the created being acquires what we call adhesion in the Creator, meaning the full measure of compatibility until there's no difference between the Creator and the created being. And the means for attaining these stages are called collectively Torah and Mitzvah, Torah and the commandments. And that's what we actually need to understand, that our structure is a structure that already exists, and the qualities that are in each one and in creation collectively are qualities that the Creator has established and determined in advance. And the final state is determined according to the degree of the Creator. That's also predetermined. And all the stages of changes from beginning of creation until the end of creation are certainly stages that are understood and known relative to every part and every connection among the parts. Then it's clear using which forces and means each part as it mixes with others, and all those parts collectively reach their purpose. So none of the parts or the way they are used or all the states theirs. Nothing a person can change about all of that. Rather what depends on a person is only the desire to participate in this process in order to reach the Creator. But what is the desire to participate? It's to grow their goal as the greatest thing possible. This is the meaning of a desire to participate, to reach the goal, to reach a state where the Creator, its status, the adhesion with him, will seem to a person as the only thing that even exists before him in his world, in each and every state. According to the to recognition of this importance, a person is incorporated inside this process. As much as he doesn't want to be in this process, he doesn't know about it. He's not in it. He is not in it. But as much as to the extent that he wants to be in this process, he's in this process. It's as if the process itself is a current that flow, and if you incorporate in it, you enter this river, and the middle of it, that is flowing toward the goal, or you're moving out a little to the side more and more until you gradually reach the shore, and there is no flow whatsoever. So to be in it or out of it depends on the desire to be inside this stream, meaning to what extent the attainment of the Creator is important in the eyes of the person. And this is truly the essence of choice a person has. Neither his nature nor the bowl nor the flow or the way he reaches his purpose in this river. None of it matters. What matters is the speed, meaning with which desire, how much desire does he put into participating in it, and to what extent he is searching for means to increase and grow his desire to reach the Creator. Why is it called carrying out or keeping or observing? To mitzvot is a mutit because it's a mutual thing. Torah is something received from above, from the future state. When a person yearns for the future state because the future state already exists and a person yearns for it, he draws himself near to this future state, and he acquires this force for himself called surrounding light, and this is called the force of Torah. Also in the Torah, all the lights that are working on the soul, on the person, are Torah in total, called Torah. Surrounding lights, inner lights, various lights, all of them. And also for the counsels, the advice of the sages, those who attained everything and are telling us about it, how to do it. But all the changes a person applies onto himself using this light that comes, they are called mitzvot, commandments. Everything positive that a person does in order to participate with greater to a greater extent in this stream that can take him to the Creator. This is called mitzvot, commandments. Actions, schemes, various schemes that a person can execute to insert himself into this great current that brings him to the Creator, and these things depend on one another. There are such commandments a person does to awaken surrounding light. There are those that come as a result of the influence of the surrounding light on him, and in total, generally speaking, the commandments and the Torah are interrelated because my actions depend on the light that come to me. Their light relates, it's connected to the actions I do as preparation. I look for a group. I awaken myself using the group for the light to influence me, to give me more power. This is also called the light comes to me awakened in various outcomes of awareness of good and evil. Discernments out of that I have all kinds of desires to scrutinize the vessels, to correct the vessels. Where discernment and correction of the vessels are also called commandments. Generally speaking, is a process person undergoes in this mutual work between the light and the vessels. This in general is the topic of the vessel of the wisdom of Kabbalah. How, where light shakes the vessels, corrects the vessels, and brings it to its purpose, called adhesion, equivalence of for and adhesion. And what does he say? By that the vessel acquires the knowledge and the feeling of his godliness, because the feeling of this godliness comes to the created being, until then awakens him until they reach the final wholeness, until the eye has not seen a God beside you. Why the eye has not seen a God beside you? There is a certain pride and negation of others because of the greatness and glory of that perfection. The Torah and the prophecy to refrain from uttering even a single word of exaggeration, so on, so forth. We scrutinize doesn't mean the eye has not seen a God beside you, each meaning each and every one comes to the correction and the fulfillment. When the Creator clothes in each and every part of the created being in the to the complete extent, unique to that created being. This is the meaning of the eye has not seen a God beside you. The way you reveal it, no one else reveals it. But because you reach connection with others without any separation, this creates wholeness. And the Creator does not agree to clothe in anyone except according to his measure of wholeness with others, and by that you reveal the contradiction between things. Each one reveals only in his own personal way, very sharply delineated within his own boundaries on the one hand. On the other hand, everyone's connected together, without any separation, any difference, without, while passing everything one has to the other completely. So it turns out, there's no difference between them, even though for each one the Creator is different. That creates, how shall I put it, that creates a vessel that is always lacking and is always full. We will continue in item 7. But here came the sages of the Zohar and asked why we were not created this high stature of with him to begin with. What reason did he have to burden us with this labor and burden of creation and the Torah and mitzvot? Evil, they replied, he who eats that which is not his is afraid to look at his face. This means that one who eats and enjoys the labor of one's friend is afraid to look at his face, because by doing so he becomes increasingly humiliated until he loses his human form, because that which extends from his wholeness cannot be deficient. He gave us room to earn our exaltedness by ourselves through our work. In these words are most profound, and I have already explained them in my book on the Tree of Life, branch 1, and in the study of the 10th part 1. Here I will explain them briefly to make them understandable for all. We will continue to another lesson from December 3rd, 2003. We are in item 7. Article Matanto asks, why did you have to put us through all this labor of Torah and creation and Torah and mitzvot? Meaning, why did we have to be born corrupt and lowly and despicable? There is nothing like us, right? We have to correct ourselves through actions called tarwar, and only then to reach a state called corrected, desirable at the end of the action in the initial thought. The Creator is omnipotent. Why did he do it this way? Meaning, I don't know. How is it possible to do these actions with shame, without shame to receive? To bestow my question is, why did he do it specifically in this way? I have no idea what other way you can do it, because I'm already built using certain qualities, certain vessels. I cannot think except through what's already in me. I cannot imagine myself and creation differently than how I'm already in it, and only from within my qualities. But the assumption is that the Creator is omnipotent. Why did he choose this particular order to have our Adam, a man, divided into two genders, and to have so many people, and to have the work, and to have them go through each and every stage of it before they reach compatibility, adhesion in the Creator, but the force with the desire that created them? Why do they need such a burden, such a heavy burden? And they replied, in order for you not to feel shame. And that's also curious. What do you mean not to feel shame? So I will not feel shame. How can a person not feel shame? A beast does not feel shame, but a human that receives feels shame. That's also not an excuse. It's clear to us now, from the reality that we're in, that this is how he was created. But maybe it was possible to create him differently, undoubtedly. But in truth these things are deep. Why did the Creator create such a special reality, additional reality called shame? Meaning, why did he make the difference between us and him with a feeling called shame in us. And this is what we're talking about. This is the concept of shame. The gap between the creator and the created. Being that the created being reveals. And this gap, this difference cannot be. Because he's a giver and I am a receiver. I'm built to receive and my will to receive is from him, and if I activate my will to receive, there shouldn't be any shame about it because I'm just carrying out all the actions that come from him. There's nothing that comes from me, no, neither thought or desire nor action, rather the shame is, as he writes in it, observation. There's something very special that's revealed only to the highest souls in the spiritual degrees that they attain, something that exists between them and the upper force called shame, and they correct that sensation. When they correct it, they reach adhesion with the creator. The way shame is a creation unto itself. This phenomenon was created especially to give a person the ability to reach equivalence of form with the creator without the feeling of this gap called shame. A person wouldn't be able to reach equivalence of form. He would have remained in the feeling of this gap. That's why he writes that these words are most profound, because truly it's hard for us to penetrate them. We are need to accept them as fact. Good. The fact he created the sense of shame within us, can we say that is to emphasize the gap between us and the creator, using our words for the time being. Let's take it like this, that the feeling of the shame is the feeling of the gap between the giver and the receiver that obligates the receiver to reach the degree of the giver. Then this negative feeling called shame is neutralized. But it's hard for us to talk about it. Because, and then I work because something pressures me and disrupts me. And in order to neutralize it, I seek equivalence of form with the creator. You understand, as if from within the world. To receive from this hurts my ego, my pride. It's not contradiction, but these things we need to open them up. That's why he says these words are most profound, because this thing is found at the foundation, the heart of creation. When we say creation is Baal, but outside of the creator, then only we have a feeling of shame. You can see that we are outside of the creator, not with our will to receive, certainly, not with his will to bestow or the one that we acquire, not the substance of the vessels him themselves, certainly not the feeling, rather there is a feeling here, the discernment that awakens in the created being in the special state, special occasion between the creator and the created being, and this is called shame. This feeling is called shame. It's not about our will to receive itself, because it comes from the creator. This feeling has to be about the gap between us that doesn't seemingly come from him. If I receive because he created me in this way, this is, you can't say that I feel shame there. There has to be a certain development on top of the will to receive in addition to it. That's why I'm saying that shame is a creation unto itself. A created being unto itself. That's what I heard from my teacher in those words, that shame is a created being unto itself. I'm avoiding entering into it. It's a creation in and of itself, because in its action it's made by its action, or it's the creator's action. Everything that activates us now is some form of hurt in the world to receive. Even what he says here, someone receives from someone and the receiver feels some unpleasantness because he was created in this way. So this unpleasantness obligates him to create to come up with certain tricks, certain schemes to cover it, to correct it, meaning the will to receive, hurting one's honor, the necessity, the created being to do it. Of course, there's no relation between this correction and the force of shame that motivates us. The force of shame is the concept of shame that he writes about, the spiritual shame that motivates us to reach equivalence of form with the creator, rather in our world. This is how it clothed in our world in this way. But certainly, it stems entirely from this feeling of hurt in the vessels of reception that I generally neutralize this unpleasantness in order to receive, or this unpleasantness does not allow me to receive. Otherwise I can't reach equivalence of form with the giver. So the feeling, the shame the created being feels has to be much more than it was in the first restriction. What felt? Of course that shame that Mar had felt in the first restriction, and it's clarified over the shattering of the vessels where Malt doesn't only feel itself before the giver but in every detail where there's a mixture between vessels of reception and vessels of bestow. You feel the gap and the connection between the vessels, between their qualities, and from that the created being comes to understand the difference between him and the creator. But the difference, lack the words to say, maybe I can't find the words. It's not simply the difference between a giver and a receiver, because if the receiver is under the complete dominion of the giver, and he attains it through the spiritual degrees, he doesn't feel any shame in that. Rather, the discernment of shame is because he's unable to pay it back. We'll come to it. How can the created being stand against his maker and dare to challenge the gap between him and the creator? Where does he get this audacity? Where does the created being have the power, the audacity to dare to equalize with the creator? It dares to equalize him with the creator because he seemingly has all the means. The created being has all the means. He has a desire to feel pleasure. He has the feeling of the giver. He has next to him. He feels the desire of the giver too. If the pleasure the giver feels from giving, and if he uses all that information or this data, then there's no problem with himself in order to position himself correctly relative to the giver. He's got everything. You say that feeling the shame is as a result of discovering the gap between the creator and the created being. Now, in order for the shame to happen, for the created being to feel it, he has to perceive the gap between him and the creator. First of all, where does he have the vessels for it? So I'm saying, the gap is not because he's a giver, and I'm a receiver, and he's a bestow. Because why my receiver also stems from his giving. It's not. That there's the attainment of the gap in something else that I cannot express now, but not that, because he's a giver. Receiver, a child doesn't feel shame to receive from his mother. On the contrary, he demands from her that degree of closeness. The feeling of adhesion, of belonging goes completely against the feeling of shame, and the gap is in something else, not in the fact that he gives and I receive, but because I can't pay it back. I can't return at. I don't feel shame for receiving according to my nature, because that's the nature that he created. Rather, I feel shame because I cannot reach equivalence of form with him. To return to love, that's the development of the created being. Again, I'm saying I didn't find the words to express it. The ability to give back is a feeling of independence, as in that's how the created being acquires independence, is the ability to return but favor that semblance of independence. Yes and no, because I don't do it to be independent. Again, can be interpreted as if I'm trying to guard, to protect my ego, to be independent, to be like him. Understand, there are words that you have to organize. Here, the correction does not come from an attempt to protect the will to receive in any way, shape, or form. And here in the words that he's using to describe it, that he feels shame, and that's why he doesn't want to feel shame, is he feels unpleasantness. It's as if he is trying to protect the world to receive it. That obligates him to reach equivalence of form. If we speak about Lishma, our language is prepared for that, but if we want to speak after that, in Lishma, and shame begins in first restriction, the world of itself, And he writes that it's reserved only for the highest souls. Then we lack the words to express it. It's tough. It's not using the terminology of giver and receiver, because it's not important to the Creator if you receive or you do not receive. Rather, he created shame in order to bring you to a certain maturity and something else like this. So, don't be ashamed to receive. Do a little bit of bestowal, and then say thank you and receive. No, you grow by becoming like him with the help of shame. Meaning, shame is a totally different parameter compared to reception or not receiving. What is the correct overcoming? The correct overcoming over shame is that by this, you reach this compatibility with the Creator. There's a bit of a difference here between giving. To give, that's not the Creator. It's not the Creator. Yet to attain the equivalence of form with the Creator, it's not merely to bestow, it's to reach the thought of creation, to do good to His created beings. That's the purpose. We need to be incorporated in the thought of creation, to do good to His created beings in that measure of love. So the shame is relative to that. And to give or to receive in order to bestow simply are a means for expressing this relationship. I don't want to talk about it because I know in advance that I will have no words for it, and that's why I said we shouldn't delve into it. Please. You see, he writes a tiny excerpt and immediately he says that these words are most profound. Item 8. This matter is like a rich man who took a man from the market and fed him and gave him gold and silver and every desirable thing each day. Each day, he showered him with more gifts than the day before. Finally, the rich man asked, "Tell me, have all your wishes been fulfilled?" And he replied, "Not all of my wishes have been fulfilled. For how good and how pleasant it would be if all those possessions and precious things came to me through my own work as they have come to you, and I would not be receiving the charity of their hand." Then the rich man told him, in this case there has never been born a person who could fulfill your wishes. It is a natural thing since, on one hand, he experiences greater and greater pleasure the more he showers presents upon him. But on the other hand, it is hard for him to tolerate the shame of the excessive goodness with which the rich showers him. This is because there is a natural law that the receiver feels shame and impatience upon receiving gifts from a giver out of compassion and pity. From here extends a second law that never will anyone be able to satisfy the needs of his friend to the fullest, because ultimately he will not be able to give him the nature and form of self-possession, as only with it is the desired perfection attained. But this relates only to the creatures, whereas regarding the Creator, it is completely impossible and unacceptable. This is the reason He has prepared for us the toil and the labour of mitzvot to produce our exaltedness by ourselves, because then the delight and pleasure that comes to us from Him, meaning everything that is included in the with Him, will all be our own possession that has come to us through our own efforts. Then we will feel ourselves as the owners, without which there cannot be a sensation of wholeness. Again the example, he continues, and indeed it's an example that holds true, that rings true in our world, where receiver feels the difference between him and the giver, because he receives, and is it possible to reach a certain state where he will be like the giver? He doesn't yearn to be the giver. He yearns to be. He's to have the qualities of the giver. He says, "I want that everything you have, I want to be like Him." Mean that all those things will be mine and I will be able to give. It's not exactly a time I'm receiving from you and I return it to receive in order to bestow. Meaning, because you receive from the giver in order to do good to him, you come to later to this status of the giver and then this means called shame. It was installed for that. What's the difference between the qualities of the soul and the state? Stature of the giver. The status of the giver. The status of the giver is a loving mother, and out of her love she performs all kinds of actions. Her actions can be interpreted in the receiver as correct actions or incorrect actions. Good or not may be benefiting. Obligating Ima is called Biner, is called where upper that we attain through equivalence of form by receiving from her in order to bestow to her. You come to a state where you acquire the same nature. The mother has the love that is behind her actions. This is called from your actions we shall know you, and that is why it's not the actions here that are important, but the status the created being acquires. Where's the switch between acquiring all the qualities of bestow and wanting to achieve the status of their creator? This calculation takes place in the head of the parts. There isn't a single spiritual action, not even the smallest, that is fundamentally not about reaching the realization of the thought of creation toward the created being. And that's what the created being wants to reach in every spiritual action. There isn't an action, there cannot be an action beyond the barrier, which is not about attaining the purpose. All that agrees. Each and every degree is certain percentage, certain measure of the attainment of the final purpose. It's not like I'm in degree number 10. I know nothing about the end of the path. I know to that extent to the 10th degree about the end of the path, because all the degrees are made of the same pieces, the seemingly the same ingredients, components in everything. There's have a sphere of direct light, sphere of reflected light, the entire structure. The differences in the degree of closeness, of the clarity or clarification of the purpose, but every degree, even the smallest, contains all the parameters, all the data. Therefore, from the smallest action of a person who enters spirituality, he performs this action because he wants to attain the purpose to do good to his created beings. He wants to attain the final action from him seemingly, or he wants to attain the nature of the creator from which he is carrying out this act of giving to him. Not that he gives and I receive. So he will feel pleasant, and by that this is the end of the action. My final purpose in this action to do like him is to attain his mind, his attitude. The actions after all are the means, but out of wanting to attain the doing good to the created beings, he attains the qualities of the creator, not the essence itself. This is the meaning of attaining the qualities of the creator relative to the created beings. That's the meaning of attaining his status, his stature. We don't talk about his essence from the compatibility in action. We reach equivalence of form. The form is what exists before the action, that which obligates, necessitates the action. Maximum. So his status is the maximum that the creator being can reach. We cannot reach the end of the degrees. Look, put simply, we understand what they're talking about here. The giver is giving. The being feels because he's receiving, because he wants to receive. He feels shame. He feels the gap between himself and the giver. Just as he says, in order to remove the feeling of shame, he's seemingly obligated to do actions in order to bestow. Of course, that's not the motivation. So, I would not feel shamed. I would not suffer. Rather, the motivation is that I wish to reach the greatness of the giver. The greatness of the giver obligates me to be like him. That's something else. It's not as a result of my ego, which I'm trying to protect, as if it appears from the example in our world, but in general because the created being returns or repeats the same action as the creator, as the means in the connection between them, and behind this means there's something in which they are in adhesion, and what it's when the created being attains the quality of the creator, not the action of the creator, the quality of the creator that's behind the action which is called to do good to his created beings. He's included, incorporated in that feeling, in the love of the created, of the creator, toward the created beings, and that's his status, that is his status. There are other things, and the Kabbalists don't tell us about it. There are other additional essence in attaining more internal things, but they don't share it, and we have no words for it. But it's clear that we have to reach the thought of creation called to do good, to benefit his creatures before the creator does anything towards the created being. He has the thought to benefit the created being, and we need to reach that thought. This is what the meaning of to get to know the creator. We get to know the creator. Come and see, because I can come and get to know him. I have the vessels with which to reach it. And that's exactly what the name of the creator implies, and the what's before that does not belong to the creation, to the created being, what's above the thought of creation to benefit his creatures. Although there are attainments there that Kabbalists don't talk about, but certainly after the end of correction, there are additional ascents and additional attainments. The desire to resemble the creator comes from the desire of the receiver, or a feeling of shame that you say is something separate from the created being. Where does the desire to resemble the creator comes from? The desire to resemble the creator comes as an indirect result from the creator, from the creator. What comes to us directly is a desire to derive pleasure from the light that created, the desire to receive pleasure. And indirectly what comes from the attainment in the light is a feeling of the bestower that awakens in the water to receive, creates an awakening to be like the bestower. After he's doing the action like the bestower and attains what it means to be the bestower, he attains the gap between the bestower and himself. And then the shame awakens him in the 4 phases of direct light. He attains the desire to receive pleasure. In the 2nd phase, he attains the quality of the creator. In the 3rd phase, he carries out the action of receiving in order to bestow, as if he's working with these 2 parameters inside of him. And then, as a result, he's got a desire for the degree of the creator, right? That's the 4th phase, and the 4th phase, that attains the result. It attains the result of what it means to be a receiver, and what it means to be a bestower. Together, it attained the light that fills her. The light that fills her relative to her will to receive this light brings her the feeling of shame precisely. What does it mean? After the created being did exactly the same action as the creator, he feels that this action is indeed like the creator, but it's in order to resemble him as a result of the will to receive. And it's not that this action of wanting to repay the creator, it doesn't come out of love. And this gap brings him shame. You agree, I'm willing to pay. You, I'm willing to pay it back to contribute to anything needed. Where does it come from? It comes from a feeling of unpleasantness in the vessels in which I received from you. So now I see that this is a flaw. Why? What made me, what awakened me to give back to you? Feeling of unpleasantness. And I want to be awakened to give back to you because I simply love you. And the created being understands that he lacks that natural feeling of love. With the creator, it started from love. The created being was not even a created being yet. The creator didn't have to create him. Yet, seemingly he has love. And out of this love he initiates all of his actions to create the created beings and to fill them. And the attitude from the created being back to the creator comes from the matter from these actions to give and to receive, to return it like him, and so on so forth. Meaning he lacks the feeling of love that comes from zero. It comes as a result of the shame of the gap there. Unpleasantness. That's the shame. Meaning the shame is that I cannot be like the host, exactly like him where for him love proceeds. Everything and for me. Unpleasantness a lack in my vessels are ultimately the root of my action of bestow. That's what he tells us. You're pressuring me. What? What does he say? This poor person. Finally, the rich man asked, Tom, have all your wishes been fulfilled? And he replied, What do you say? How good and unpleasant it would be if all those possessions and precious things came to me through my own work as they have come to you. He wants to be on the degree of the rich person. It's not about giving or receiving. He wants to reach the starting point of the rich person the way they came to you, meaning, I want to be like you in your root equal to your root, because of himself lacks nothing. It is in adhesion with the Creator. By the way, it's in adhesion. So what does it lack? There's a point above the adhesion that we can talk about in the vessels of reception or bestow. This point of adhesion is the point of equivalence of form with the love. This unconditional love which precedes these actions. I have no words. So Somar does all the calculation, and only at the end of the calculation she finds the, now that we've come here, you'll understand that our actions need to be no words for it. I wanted to explain. Why do we need, with all those actions of the shattering and scrutinizing this gap and the correction, how from that the gap between the giver and the receiver gets clarified? It's not what we say. Usually simply how from scrutinizing the gap between the lights and the vessels, and I correct it. I eventually scrutinize the status of the Creator, because after all we are dealing here with vessels and lights, and the status of the Creator is before the lights and the vessels. So how, by correcting the relationship between the lights and the vessels, I reach a degree that precedes that the degree of love. Out of love he began to create the greater beings. How do I reach that thought of creation? That's ahead of the action of creation. I belong to that. I myself am his action. It's like the horse wants to precede the rider. It's like the horse wants to precede the rider. What we typically explain in thou has hemmed me from before and from behind. So why does the created being feel that the pleasure he receives is not his? The Creator doesn't feel that the pleasure is not his. That's not what the shame is about. That's what I was trying to say. The shame is not about receiving and giving. Also, the poor person says he doesn't have a problem with the receiving or giving. He repays the rich person with his love, or he can decide not to repay him, because the rich person loves him and is willing to give him everything. His complaint is about why he can't come to the degree before that the status of the rich person, not because he's rich, but because his desire to give. Not that someone awakens him, gives him, and awakens the shame in him, awakens the flaw in the will to receive. I don't want to awaken to you because I feel that I'm less than you, because I'm ashamed. I'm hurt. I'm floored. No, I wanted to awaken toward you be exactly because of this love for you. This unconditional love. That's where we reach at the end of correction, ultimately with all the corrections. So the question is, how, when we are born seemingly created, less than the thought of creation, to benefit these creatures from these actions? How, through the shattering of the vessels and all the things that pass over us, and a part of the process that we are in, and getting to know ourselves and the labour that we put in, how through this process I riches I reach not the place where we came from, but the degree above it. And the difference between the degrees is the Creator and the created being. We are rising from the degree of the action to the degree of the one who acts, the operator. It's not for nothing that they say that the purpose is to do good to these created beings. The thought of creation. The thought. I'm saying that our words are, we cannot scrutinize also these examples. The closest examples gives those examples what can We say about that, but even those examples are distinct in how things take place in spirituality. Okay, what is this? Response: and man was not born who can fulfill your requests. What does it mean? That no one was born that can fulfill our wishes. Means no one can give you what you want in your degree. We're asking you ask for more than what you can reach with the lights and vessels. Rather, in truth, you have to go through the shattering and the labor and the darkness. And from the darkness, when you begin to climb from the shattering of your last degree, from then you reach the degree of the rich person. Not riches, as I say, not the richness, but the desire to do good, rather to the desire to do good, without any need for it. No deficiency, but the deficiency stems out of love, and it's not based on any other deficiency. Before, where does he get this deficiency? If not in his. Where does the created being feel this deficiency? This deficiency comes to this created being precisely not because he is have something on again, because it awake from the connection between lights and vessels, but because the Creator did this special action here, special phenomenon called shame. And that's why I'm saying that I heard from the Reb that at shame is a created being or a creation onto itself, because it's the true gap between the human degree that can resemble the Creator and the godly degree. If the created being was denied this gap, he would simply receive in order to bestow. He would do the actions, but he wouldn't reach the thought of creation. He would reach the action of creation to receive in order to bestow. Okay, in him it's called bestow. Fine. He would come to it. He would do it, but he wouldn't reach a higher degree. From that, compatibility with the giver, rather, compatibility with the actions of the giver. So it's like the urge that stands behind every action, but ultimately, it can't be fully completed. It's the impulse behind every action. But you can't compensate for it, because the stony heart remains without compensation. And that's why it's where it's concealed here, precisely because there's no light that can correct it. He is standing on the revelation of the created being around the shame, specifically around shame. In other words, you can say that to receive in order to bestow, I can do that 100%. There's no stony heart there. The stony part is around my intention, where I can't give if not from the preceding deficiency. It's a qualitative matter, the stony heart. Yeah, you got a little bit of that. Item 9. We are an emotional vessel. Within what vessel do we feel the shame? We divide ourselves to vessels. Verse 9. Where does it appear? For in the vessel of the Creator, or the vessel of the created being. What does it mean? That it's a new creation, and there's only if there's only lights and vessels. The Creator and the created being. Don't say that shame is a new creation. Say it's a new phenomenon. Okay. You're asking, where is this phenomenon registered? In the lights, in the vessels, in the stony heart, that force that is later clarified as impossible to correct. And how is it corrected? By doing all these actions 100% all the actions, and 100% resembling the Creator, making themselves equal to the Creator. This force is scrutinized in full, and then it's corrected. So it's an integral part of the created being. It's an integral part of the created being, because the created being reveals it in, but it's not like we attain it now right away. Or shame is not shame, it's fear of hurting, the will to receive, not hurting our honor. Ultimately the I, where the Creator doesn't have the feeling of I at all. He doesn't think if he exists or not, doesn't contemplate that. But our shame stems from that. That's why the stony heart cannot be corrected. You need to think more inside. There are many words, but think about it. No, let's see. I don't want to go into additional depth, but you sometimes grasp it, and then it disappears, and it comes from a temporary. Feeling, as he says, not by accident. Shame is a phenomenon that appears in very high souls. They come to this feeling and only they, and on these high degrees you begin to have the work or the attainment of the shame, and before that it's the work even of in order to bestow. But it's still not in the high souls. So if I understand correctly, we could say that without the created being there would be no creator. Same thing without the shame there. Let's say this until the degree where a person comes closer to the creator and feels shame, until then he's not really called a created being. It's not called a created being, even though it could be working spiritually and advancing and in a perception and in attainment, but it's still not the created being. There are few degrees, but know it. Well, Adam 9. Can you say about a child that is 10 or 15 that it's already a person? When do you say that it's a person? What's the measure? How do you measure him? That he's reached adulthood, that after that adulthood, he'll also be able to stand and perform and do what he's supposed to. And what is adulthood? There's whether working in vessels of bestow or vessels of reception. Did he already correct his vessels of bestow, and now all he's remained at the vessels of reception? Then he can measure it all. Already in the me, in the vessels he already scrutinized, because the light is included in all vessels, and he has to scrutinize his stony heart and the gap between him and the Creator. So, item 9, indeed we need to examine the heart and the source of this natural law, and who it was that fathered the flaw of shame and impatience that we feel upon receiving charity from another. It is understood from a law that is known to scientists that each branch bears the same nature as its root, and that the branch also desires, seeks and craves and benefits from all the conducts of the root. Conversely, all the conduct that are not in the root, its branch removes itself to them, cannot tolerate them, and is harmed by them. This law exists between each root and its branch and cannot be breached. This opens before us a door to understand the source of all the pleasures and pains in our world. Since the Creator is the root of His creations, we feel all that exists in Him and which extends to us directly from Him as pleasant and delightful. For our nature is close to our root, and everything that is not in Him and does not extend to us directly from Him, but contradicts creation itself, will be against our nature and difficult for us to tolerate. Thus we love to rest and hate to move, so much that we do not make a single movement if not for the attainment of rest. This is so because our root is not in motion but at rest, and no motion exists in Him whatsoever. Therefore it is against our nature and loathsome to us as well. By the same token, we love wisdom, strength and wealth, etc., because all those exist in Him who is our root, and hence we hate their opposites such as foolishness, weakness and poverty, since they do not exist in our root at all. This makes us feel hateful and lonesome, and pains us immeasurably. That means, if we take it simple, this example with the poor man and the rich man, so it's clear that the poor person, in order to not feel the shame, does all kinds of actions in order to give back to the poor the feeling, just as the rich is relating to him. How does he know what he needs to give back and what not? So he says there's a natural law that what we feel as good, it's because it's in a root to in the Creator, and what we feel is bad is also supposedly felt in the Creator or accepted in the Creator as bad. That's why we have an ability to work back towards the Creator in an understanding that we are doing the right action only from our own feeling. That's already clear. That what's called the first law in correcting the vessels. What hated what you hate don't do to their friend, and what that whether I feel if it's good or bad. In this way I can actually know what the other sees as good as, and bad, and that is exactly what brings us a connection between the created being to the creator. If the created being starts feeling in his own vessels, starts deciphering that feeling and what he can give back to the creator. Yes. Okay. Any questions? Yeah. He says there's things that are being custom in the creator is that like there's a nature that's above the creator. He says there's a nature just like we have a certain nature, that he has a certain nature that causes the creator to do his actions as if it's above him. In the creator, there's a nature causing him to do the actions. As we were saying, it's difficult to speak simply about these things because there's something standing behind this, that in our world we don't have again the creator from his love. We don't rise beyond love. We say his desire to do good to his created beings. Why? Because he has love. Where does the love come from? That's where we start from. Where did that come from? We don't understand that. So again, what are you asking? There's a reason, which is love. And there's an action called giving. If I love, I want someone to feel my love. In what can I show him my love? By building a deficiency in him, and what I feel is pleasant, I fill that deficiency. So we to begin with have to create deficiencies, things that are unpleasant. Right then, to fill them in this way, I supposedly express my love towards someone. If I love you, so I suffer. If you don't want anything, that you're not in that in suffering. I have you in something to have, something lacking in order to give to you. So that's what the creator created. Again, there's endless words about this. What's the question? It sounds like there's some kind of nature that controls the creator. And is there a nature that controls our nature? Is there something above the creator that controls him? Whatever is above the creator is the thought of creation to do good to his created beings. Because the creator is come and see it's already below love. I said that our whole preference for rest and all that isn't that from our will to receive our rest and heroism and good pleasant things in the will to receive. So he says they are such because also the creator appreciates it. Okay. So what are you asking? I want to say that what things are negative or positive is not against that the creator wants you to enjoy at. That's why he created those deficiencies in you, in order to fill those deficiencies, and by this to express his love. Why is it missing? Why is it a deficiency? Because you feel a deficiency and rest and honor and power and heroism. What is this absolute rest? That is this thing that we're talking about, the absolute rest that we attain, and all the pleasure and abundance we attain later. It's not annulling those desires, it's filling those desires. Fulfillment isn't cancelling it. Filling means that I'm enjoying inside that desire, not that the desire disappears. It enjoys. It's completely different rest than us. Right? It's not a rest like for us. For us, everything comes from negative. Rest, for me, is not moving. I'm not running. Thank God I'm sitting. I'm resting. In spirituality, rest doesn't come from a deficiency that I'm not moving now. But rest means from being in an action itself, attaining a higher degree than the action, the result of it. That's the purpose. What is the result of this action? Where? Result of a meditation, that's rest for me. That I'm in with the creator, but with unlimited speed between actions. I'm doing a lot of actions, growing every time after the end of correction. Keep growing and expanding in attainments and feelings more and more and more. Why is it called stillness? Rest? Because it's not attained from the previous deficiency. I already reached love like he loves me, and then from here on I'm in a state of rest like he is. What is rest? That I'm working not from within a deficiency but from wholeness. What is to operate? We have no choice. we're still like drawn into a bit into that. There's a matter with lack of honor or a lack of. It can be after the shattering only. Which deficiencies are before the shattering and which exactly awakened after the shattering. From there, mixture and the feeling of the gap between vessels of bestow and vessels of reception. You could say this, that before the shattering there is no created being. There's no feeling of a created being. Before the shattering there is no someone who can say about himself that he is the created being. After the vessels were shattered, what does it mean? Vessels were shattered. The spiritual actions were shattered, not the vessels themselves. But in a way as before, you can't perform them now. And then there's a gap between the previous actions to the current actions. That the gap between them is the feeling of the created being. That feeling is called a created being, not the vessels themselves. We're not talking about the vessels. That's on account of the Creator. The fulfillments are on account of the Creator. The actions on account of the Creator. Just the comparing the actions from love or from the will to receive in its foundation, it is shame. Really, it is really called the root of the created being. That's it. So maybe we'll end here. Okay. One more. Item 10. This is what gives us the foul taste of shame and impatience when we receive from others by way of charity. Because in the Creator there is no such thing as reception of favours as from whom would he receive. Because this element does not exist in our root, we feel it as repulsive and loathsome. On the other hand, we feel delight and pleasure every time we bestow upon other since that conduct exists in our root which gives to all. So why do we need to feel the gap between all these actions in order to have a perception, and somewhat a grasp and somewhat towards the Creator? Yeah. What is that feeling that a capist feels? That he wants to do good to the Creator and the Creator has no capacity of receiving. How is it possible to give back to the Creator if he has no will to receive? Yes, he writes here. That's the question. Who from whom could the Creator receive? Who to receive from means that he was the first and before him there isn't anything that could be a reason and he would be the result. That's what it means. Who will he receive from? But supposedly from him loving us and performing an action and creating the will to receive. So when he creates the will to receive himself, he becomes lacking to receive a response from the will to receive. But that's kind of like all in the created being, right? He's the one whose it's not that the Creator itself is receiving or not. What we attain is always what the created being attains. We don't attain anything outside of the created being. Never. Now we speak in our language. The Creator wants, the Creator doesn't. When he did this, he did otherwise. First he thought this, and he's thinking that. Obviously, God forbid. It's only in our language how we express what we feel, what we understand. I'm trying to say that if a capist feels that he's giving back to the Creator, it's actually the additional feeling that the Creator gives the created. Me. You're asking, this is the Creator also some kind of vessel inside me that towards that part in me I'm relating like the Creator, and it's not outside of me? How do I know what's outside of me? Right? Yeah, exactly. I don't know who or what's outside of me. Outside of me it's something, you can't call it in a name. You can't relate to it. I have no contact with it. That's it. No. So what are the other souls that are outside of me that know? No. The questions are already. Before we move to the next part of the lesson, let's do a summary of what we heard so far. A summary of the lesson in the tense. There were actually 2 lessons. There was 2, right? A very strong to see how in the first impression how relevant it is all these Lessons even though it was 2003 and now we're in 25, they are relevant to the work between us, to the inner work, to the inner understanding of human nature. So I wrote down 2 things here. One is that the way what you reveal nobody else can reveal, only you reveal it, and the way you reveal it, only you reveal it. That's on one hand, the revelation is personal. On the other hand, we're all connected, and there's no difference between us. So then, I've explained that actually a state comes that on one hand everybody's always in a deficiency and all of us together are in a fulfillment, that was the first thing. Another thing I heard is by equivalence of form we reach the same nature. It's not the actions that are important, but the state that the created being acquires, and that is our constant work in relation to the nature of creation, and to constantly measure ourselves toward that until we reach it. Yes, the stature of the giver is the important thing which is above every preceding desire or deficiency. I'm first in giving in such a state in which I must give, and then I also heard that the Creator has suffering from the created being not having suffering, because he is no to no one to give, to no deficiency to fill, and we yearn to reach that state in which we will want above every deficiency to connect between us and bestow to the Creator. Everything that happens in the root happens in the branch. He will love them and covet them. It all depends on equivalence of form. Heap during the light that reforms to constantly think and pay attention on the things. It's very interesting special lessons that gives it to just keep going. Our final goal is to attain the qualities of the Creator, his stance, which is to do good to his creating, to reach the thought of creation. There are so many questions that don't have answers right now. And you also don't need, we have to concentrate in what we have to work now. Connection and drawing the light that reforms. The rest will come accordingly. I also wanted to relate to what it said, who began the workshop, as if so much time went by and things aren't changing. It's like the set of rules. The laws never change. I'm less impressed by that. I'm only impressed by the fact that Rav said the same things. And each time, with every change that we go through in our state, in our development, and our willingness to immerse ourselves in the advice of the Kabbalists, then we change and we suddenly hear it differently, meaning the information will always remain the same, and also as far as our revelations. Personally, he also explained it in other cases where something that is emotional in feeling you'll never be able to pass as it's something personal. Also the whole structure and description of our deficiency and its filling, and how the Creator wants to come closer to us constantly, simply our ear each time our situation is more ready, and we're kind of like hearing the same things but in a way that's grasped in our feelings, in our heart, with an ear that's ready to receive it, because tells us about the laws of creation, the development of man, development of creation. So it's laws that don't change, only we every time understand it in a different depth. I wrote down here from the lesson when described that what's in our root in the Creator, we feel something good, and what isn't feels something bad, and then there's a good part here that only from air feeling. So it becomes clear as the first law in correcting the vessels. What you hate, don't do to others by feeling if it's good or bad. That's how I can know what the other feels is good or bad, and that's exactly what gives us a connection between the Creator and the created being. If the created being starts deciphering his feeling and what he can give back to the Creator, so again it brings us back to our connection between us, how we can, through actions like children, to at least try and reach a deficiency of resembling the Creator's actions. Yes, another point. Our structure is a structure that already exists, and the qualities in each of us and in creation are ones that the Creator defined in advance. So a question that is asked is, what is the participation of a person in this whole story? So a person can only participate with his desire to participate to make the goal as the biggest thing possible is the desire to participate, the desire to reach the goal, to come to a state where the creator, his state, his adhesion to him, will appear as the only thing that stands before him in the world in every given situation. This is our huge thing. To begin with, that we have the opportunity to participate in the purpose of creation as created beings, and all we need to do is to express our desire to participate, to just want to be part of this process of correction and part of resembling this special quality of the Creator, the quality of love, and altogether. It's amazing each time how great this opportunity we've been given is. Next part, we're going to study from test. Hello friends, we are studying from the Volume 1 Part 2 of the study of Tensot Inna Observation. We are in item 92. You can find the study material and the system. Before we start reading item 92, we will watch clip number 11. Intention. Before the lesson, please. The writer writes about phenomena that he feels in his own vessel, if his vessel is corrected to degree 100 in spirituality, or if he's corrected in 0 degree in spirituality. So why do I understand? Why do I care if I feel understand them in my brain or not? He writes about what he reveals in his vessel, a corrected desire with a screen coupling by striking what happens inside it. That's what he's writing about. What else could he write about on what he's revealing? Why do I care about all those little intricacies? What do I understand about this? Nothing. But if I read it, I'm already connected to that degree in surrounding light. What does that mean? Something shines on me a bit. When that bit shines on me, now the question is, what am I demanding from that illumination in a way that it will work on me? It comes to me. So I'm thankful for an illumination coming from above, and that's why I'm even opening the book and studying, and I'm expecting that light, 'cause that light is mine. It's for me, like the rooster says in the introduction to test. I want my eyes to be opened. I want to receive those corrections like the cobblers on that degree he's writing about. I want to resemble him. I want to learn from this, to be like him. So I'm demanding from this illumination, from the studying called that reforms. It's called that I'm studying Torah. I'm studying through the path of light. Inner Observation Part 2 Volume 1. Item 92, the heading, the difference between the imparting of the light and the order of the clothing of the light. Now you see the great difference between the order of the imparting of the upper light into the order of the clothing of the light in the vessels. The giver needs the coarsest phase, because the light of can come to the poo only when it has a screen on the vessel of phase 4. Prior to this, when such coarseness was not present there, but rather a fainter coarseness, meaning that of phase 3, it was impossible for this important light called to be imparted into the PS. Nevertheless, when this important light is drawn to, it does not dress in the vessel of phase 4, but in the most refined of all, namely the vessel of, let's see clip number 12. Please. We're working with vessels that are more coarse. As a result, the light comes in close, bigger lights in more refined vessels, or speaking about working with the maximum coarseness that could be in the vessel is a result. The lights are revealed. The lights are results. Don't imagine that there's something above the vessel. The light of there is no such thing. There's a light that the vessel reveals in each and every cell in each and every vessel, personal vessel, according to the degree of the screen. There are no lights before vessels. Item 93. Each light that comes to thee is received only in the vessel. Buff 93. By the same manner, the light of which is only imparted in a screen of the vessel of Santin, meaning phase 3, when dressing in the emanated being, It does not dress in the vessel of, but in the most refined vessel, namely the vessel of Keter. It is the same with the light of Nesharmer, which is imparted only with a screen with the coarseness of phase 2 in the vessel of Al. Yet when it dresses in it, it dresses only the vessel of Keter. Likewise, the light of which is only imparted into a screen of phase 1 in the vessel of still when it dresses in it, it does not dress in the vessel of, but in the most refined vessel, namely the vessel of. Thus each and every light that comes to that first comes in the vessel of, as we have said that any receiver receives only in the most refined vessel, even though the imparting came to it through the coarsest vessel. Understand this. Well, 94. The heading the circles do not receive the upper light because they have no coarseness. 94. From the aforesaid you can also understand why the circles do not receive any imparting from the upper, but must receive all their lights from the light of the lime. It is so, although the vessels of the circles precede the vessels of straightness of the line, it is a simple matter. They do not have any coarseness because all their 4 phases are equal. Thus only the vessels of straightness in the line which do have a screen and coarseness are imparted upon by the upper light, and the circles receive from. Then, let's see clip 13. Please. The circles can do anything. It's the same vessels as the straightness, but because there's no screen, they are angled towards the straightness, and the straightness bestows upon them. That's why the light that a copist receives in is called the light of Nephesh. It's not the light of the line, because in the line it's from, and the circles the light of could be, but the form of reception is called. You hear the difference or not? Not sure. If I receive in straightness, according to a screen, I receive the light of Nephesh, and that's the light of Nephesh. From the line, from the screen, from the coarseness that give and take. If I received the light in the circles, any light expanding in the circles, no matter what, it's called the light of Neph. Why? Because it's passive. I didn't draw anything. That's why it's named that way. In the circles, the light of can expand. It's called is still called because the form of reception is called without any effort from its behalf, only by annulling itself. That's why Nephesh in the line in a circle is completely not the same essence of this name of this definition. Item 95. The heading any degree that receives from another and does not have any form of bestow in and of itself is regarded as Nephesh. 95. For this reason, the light of the circle is regarded as the light of Neph. The rule is that any degree that is not imparted upon by the upper light, but receives its illumination from another degree, that light is called the light of Nephesh or female light, because the circles do not receive from the upper light, but receive their illumination from the line. They're considered as female light or the light of Nephesh. It has also been explained above about the vessels of straightness at if the entire coarseness in the screen had been purified, there is no imparting of upper light there any longer. In that state, there is only the illumination from the previous degree there, which is therefore called the light of Ne. Let's watch clip 14. Of course, the light that is felt in the circles is the light of Nephesh. It can't be otherwise, because from the Creator when the light comes towards the created being, if not for the work on behalf of the created being to reveal a yearning for the host, to want to be like the host, the light that is just revealed in the will to receive that would have been accepted there only as the light of the rest, from we attain it through our relation to the host by greatness of the Creator. We could say otherwise that all of it compared to is from the importance of the giver. The importance of the giver adds these flavors, these tastes. If you feel them as more important, there's more tastes. Instead of even more important, is even More addition comes on account of the host, not from the tastes that are on the table. On the table I have its all, its 5 lights. Now what's revealed in the vessels of circles? In the vessels of circles, they are revealed from the line, and the line divides the circles to its own. But the feeling of the on behalf of the circles is as opposed to that the feeling of the light, if we say, but also it can be, but it's active. What do you mean active? That there's an addition of consideration of the giver. The addition is the consideration of the giver. That's active. We're moving to Chapter 9. Chapter 9 explains why each and every spur consists of 10 inner spur, and the inner one consists of inner spur, and so they continue to expand endlessly and infinitely. Let's see clip number 15, please. If we wouldn't have the first restriction, a screen, reflected light, so we wouldn't have all this division and endless of individual parts, because all in all what we have in reality from above downward are 4 phases of direct light or tense field, the original tense field, but all of the beauty and abundance, the beauty in the upper worlds, comes from the connection that comes through the screen and reflected light. That the screen and reflected light is what connects all of the to one another. Why does the screen connect all the to one another? From the screen coming from the wall to receive, and in the will to receive there are no reflected light, nothing, but the will to receive that want to receive the form like the first 9, where form, it begins from its desire and coarseness to connect to all kinds of forms of bestow, and in its will to receive that is different. He wants to resemble all the forms of bestow, and from this come all the many forms. What are the billions and billions of details that are in all the worlds? It's the will to receive that wants to receive upon itself all kinds of different manners of the first 9 spur. If it wouldn't want to resemble the actions of bestow these and those and those and those and so on, there would be one form like and meaning. Why do the 10s divide into endless? This division is not theirs. Those 10 are an example that the Walter Seed takes from them, and he divides himself into endless details, that every detail is some kind of resemblance of the will to receive to an external form of the first 9. We are starting the chapter 9. Our first heading is each inner sphere. In each and every world consists of 10 inner of inner spur, etc. endlessly and infinitely. Item 96. Its heading concerning the division of the to inner and inner of inner ones, infinitely, indefinitely. It is a wonderful lore in the upper worlds that in each sphere that we choose to examine, we will find 10 inner spur, and if we take a single spur from those 10 inner, we find another 10 inner spur inside the first sphere. Also, if we take one spur from the inner of inner spur, which we find in it 10 once more, which are inside the previous inner of inner ones, and so on indefinitely. Let's see clip number 16, please. Wonderful lore. We still don't know what wonderful is, but what is special is that all the division is towards the previous, in the value of the previous. Look at that line, that are the details in the value of their first meaning. When we take a certain and what comes out of it, even another millions of, and who knows what all those millions that came out are towards, that its details, they are all in its character meaning. If that's that, I determine that from it and onward I check what came out of it on the side. Maybe some world doesn't matter, the whole world has the character or the form of that where it came out from. It can be otherwise, because it is a source, the root towards everything that came out of it. Meaning, even though reality is endless, but all in all it comes out from the original tense, and we can always in every detail see eventually what original came out of that. Eventually it must be belonging to that same source. And from where can we come out if there's only so? Where do all the details and divisions and accumulations, and they come out of the connection from those 10 where each one is incorporated in the other and each one in more and more and more. So all in all, that separation, that division to all those endless details, comes as an incorporation of each one and the other. Item 97, the heading. Any light that passes through the degrees leaves its root in each degree it passes through. 97, you will understand the reason for it. According to the rule that there is no absence in spirituality, it explains means that it is impossible that there will be any kind of light in the lower one that will not exist in all the upper ones above it up. 2. The reason is that even a very small illumination that emerges in the lowest degree in the worlds must emerge from pass through all the worlds and degrees before that low degree until it comes there, because this illumination cascades and passes through the degrees. It cannot be absent from the first degree because it has come to the second, and absent from the second degree when it comes to the third, etc., until it reaches the last degree, which receives it. As with oral objects that move from place to place, this is not at all possible in the spirituals where there are no absence and replacement. Instead, when an illumination travels through a certain degree, even if only in parsing, it necessarily acquires its place there. Let's watch clip 17, please. Everything that cascades from the root, what's it mean? Cascade. That it receives all kinds of changes in form by the will to receive in it, receiving all kinds of different manner, styles of bestow. So every previous form is a root, a base towards all the next coming forms that come out of it. And of course, that it can't be. That previous form is absent. The Creator is there, is the source of all of creation on it, clothe or come out of it. All its bestows in the form of 4 phases, and from it the mal that responds the will to receive that response starts developing and resembling all kinds of manners it discovers in the first 9, and obviously the Creator, its light, sustains this whole picture and pushes it, implements this development, and it can't be. That previous inner form will disappear because it's like the Creator towards the created beings. That if the Creator disappears from reality, obviously the created being won't exist, because the light is what sustains and builds and activates that desire. Item 98. Heading. A light that appears once in a degree remains there for eternity. 98. A coming and transitioning to the following degree does not decrease the light that she had left and has acquired its place in the previous degree in any way. Rather, it is like lighting one candle from another without diminishing the first. Here too, when the light leaves the first degree and descends to the next, the light remains complete in both the first and the second. Likewise, when it enters the third, the light does not move from the second at all. The light is complete in both the second and the third. In this way, it passes through all the degrees that precede the last degree, being the actual receiver for which the light came down, from becoming fixed in all of them. The reason for this is that there is no absence in the spiritual, and any light that's shown in a spiritual phase once will not move from that phase forever. Not even a bit. Maybe it's easiest to describe it from the assumption that the Creator created a whole complete state, that it's already in the final correction with all details